Hello, welcome to my 3.16 Path of Exile Scourge League starter build for softcore trade. This is the trade build. You probably can do something like it on solo self-found. I personally just wouldn't. I would play a stronger build. You could still play it though. It is playable. It just wouldn't be that good. So what are we looking at? This is one of the more interesting and weird builds to come out of this pack that I have looked at, that I have found. This is a aura stacking, life-based, permanent adrenaline smite champion. And now, why aura stacking? Isn't aura stacking dead? Isn't it shit? Well, no. It's actually just changed dramatically. It's not quite the same thing, but the interesting thing about it is it requires very little investment now. This new stat, which is called Reservation Efficiency of Skills, makes it so that we have a lot more reservation effectiveness early and without gear. So why does that matter? Well, Champion has this thing, it's called Inspirational. This is a pretty good note in general, but the 30% increased effect of non-curse auras from your skills is great, and you don't actually get to use it that much on Champion. Obviously, it's nice to have on other builds, but it doesn't enable a whole build the way it does in this one. And our skill is Smite. Smite is just a very standard style strike skill with lightning damage and conversion, but the really cool part about it is that the added lightning on the gem is an aura. Unlike most gems in the game that just have it on it, it's an aura, and it gets scaled by our aura effect. And since reservation is so wonderful of a stat to have, we get a whole bunch of reservations. So not only do we get to enable our damage through this, we get to enable all kinds of things through this. We get to have pretty great regen. We get to have huge evasion, huge armor. Regular physical monster attack hits are going to do nothing to this build. We get to have crazy speed. Our attacks per second, depending on where in the build we are, this is basically the most gimped version of this build I can put together in terms of the tree and the gear. It's still okay damage, and 500k with basically nothing on other than Fidelitas' spikes, which are a level 22 weapon. And we get to have all of these wonderful things. This is 7.5 attacks per second. We get to go somewhere upwards of 12, depending on which version you're playing and how much gear you have. Very fast, super fast leap slam to go with it. Feels good to play if you're a melee type of player. You like going fast. This is a build that will work for sure. And we are going to be doing pretty good damage on a very low budget, and we're going to be quite tanky, especially to fizz hits. We have permanent fortify. If I go and I put on all the other gear, we'd have about 50k armor and evasion to start, and that's not including the new unstoppable hero. And it's not including just clusters and min-maxing to a large degree the tree. This is a pretty, it's not, there are some things you're going to pick up on most styles of builds in that genre. So this genre is strikes. We're always picking up Tribal Fury. This is actually necessary to play strike skills, in my opinion. This attack mastery is really a great buff to strike skills. We got a whole much more melee strike range on the tree, so it might feel a little bit worse to play early in the axe, but it will feel way better later. And we have chance to gain frenzy charge when you hit a unique enemy. This is crazy. This is one of the best masteries in the game. I haven't seen many people talk about it, which I find weird, because to me this enables all sorts of builds. And also just makes any build that uses swords just have 12% more damage on bosses. Really, really great. We need to take, not only do we get reservation efficiency from the general aura nodes, but there's new masteries that give it us as well. We get 25% here on determination, and determination got reworked to be more armor now, so it got a huge buff. Grace is still great, gives a huge amount of flat evasion. And the tree other than that is pretty standard, just life and crit. And the interesting thing comes next is the gear. Well, here we have Fidelitas' spike on. This is playable. You could get to red map with Fidelitas' spike. It's a level 22 sword, and it enables the flat lightning scaling from the aura effect that we're going. We're going to have Herald of Thunder with this setup. There are many different setups. Some of them are quite different looking. This is our basic. We're hitting maps. We're basically in solo self-found or close to it. And we have almost nothing enabled and no special synergies going on in the gear yet. Well, as soon as we can, we want to get Ichimojis. Ichimojis are insane for this build because reservation is so huge and increased effect of buffs applies to every single buff we have. So not only do these swords give us damage, but they give us all sorts of extra goodies. They give us life regen, they give us speed, they give us accuracy, armor, and evasion. Now, the next thing we want, these will probably only be a couple chaos in trade. But we really want, this might be more expensive. This is maybe the only downside of the build, is people are realizing how good this build is now. Way better with the changes. And we are a champion, so we just always have onslaught, and that increased attack damage per 200 of armor and evasion. Like I said, we get up to about 50k without messing around too much, without too min-maxing the gear and having percent everywhere on our stuff. Then we want to look for this amulet. This amulet is very important to get good damage. All that last line of the aura effect is a mastery that's just in place of a mastery. You don't actually get that on the amulet. Really all we need is a bunch of crit and the quality that gives crit and influence. And since we have tainted oils now, and we're going to have all sorts of new ways of taking corrupted items and messing with them and modifying them in this new league, this won't be hard to get at all. It's pretty. It looks kind of way better than it is. Really, it's all about. Really, it's the crit multi and the life. You could take this and just not have, and just use life and res to start. But the crit is great, and influence is really important. Really important that we get influence pretty quickly. These are just life rings. Eventually we want something like that. Not a huge deal. And boots, just life. We want armor and evasion, though, on every piece of gear. Because perseverance is lowest of armor and evasion. So we want armor and evasion on every piece of gear. Something like that for gloves. Really not, once again, not very crazy. And probably a few days in the league near the end of, we want, smite has the increased aura effect. And I'm just putting on Crown of the Inward Eye because it's just a good helmet. There's probably best in slot is the rare influenced with the minus lightning res and not the fortify, but the other one. And we won't get that for a while, but we can get one of these. This, I'm imagining that enchant will cost you basically nothing if there's one of them with it. And it's just a great helmet. You just slap it in any build. We would like a armor and evasion helmet eventually, though. And these flasks are pretty important because they just give armor and evasion. And it really bumps up our damage. I think that's everything, but I'm sure I'm missing something. Oh yeah, the aura is pretty important. We have some pretty. It does one of the things about this build. It does take some fiddling. We do want 51% of life as perfect. Uh, More isn't awful, but we want it to be around 51%. We want to enable the overleach of petrified blood, the permanent adrenaline, and to be able to reserve as much as possible. We still have 15% here. We do need some okay amount of unreserved mana, just because we're going to be hitting so fast that each use of our skill, uh, even though we have an insane amount of mana regen due to clarity, that does need to have at least a fraction so that we don't attack just way too fast. And the doors are variable. I have anger in here. This is the setup without that was for the setup without perseverance. We want determination. We want grace. We want to get this up to about 50k. Shouldn't be too hard. Like I said, there's basically nothing of significance here in terms of giving us crazy amounts of armor and evasion. Eventually, we want this line now effective non-curse auras. And yeah, that's pretty much it for now, because I'm too retarded to think of what else